Today we have Andrew Williams, CEO of New Pacific Metals. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sure. So give us your background and a little bit of information about the company.
Sure. So by way of personal background, I joined the company in January of this year as its president. And prior to joining New Pacific, I spent the last 11 years at an institutional investment firm focused exclusively on precious metals companies, and got to know New Pacific quite well and understood them to be in a very unique situation where they had made two very successful discoveries and were embarking on that transition from being a successful exploration company and becoming a project development company. So I joined as the president in January of this year, focusing primarily on the capital markets and the corporate development initiatives, and have increasingly been taking on more responsibility in the operational front. And just yesterday was promoted to CEO as part of a broader transitional effort as we mature the company and really become a blue chip project development company.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
So in the state of the company, you have different goals. How would you compare your goals now that you're CEO to the company? Is it more speculative or more conservative, or?
Yeah, I think, like I said, evolution is a very important part of the New Pacific story today. So we've had a tremendous amount of success over the last 5 years, creating value the old-fashioned way through the drill bit, three substantial greenfields discoveries. Certainly our silver sand is our flagship and our most advanced project, but just last week we released our inaugural resource estimate for our Carangas project, and so we certainly have critical mass as far as successful exploration effort goes, and so we are still, exploration is an important part of our company's DNA, but we've bolted on the project development capabilities, which is a different skill set. And it's, again, part of a natural evolution of a company that's successfully made two globally significant discoveries.
Okay, so you talked about those discoveries. Do you have any other resources you want to talk about?
We do have a third project, the Silver Strike project. We scout drilled it last year. About 6,000 meters of drilling went into Silver Strike, and we made a third discovery within our company. We hit 200-meter runs of oxidized gold at roughly 1 gram per ton right near surface. But we made the strategic decision as a company early this year to hit the pause button on our Silver Strike project, given just how much we have on our plate at both our silver sand and Carangas projects. Furthermore, it is a challenging market for precious metals equities, and the types of drill results we were putting out at Silver Strike, we weren't getting the full credit of the intensity and the value of those, the discovery that we thought it should deserve. So why stretch ourselves for results that we weren't being rewarded for? So we put that on the shelf. It's not going anywhere. It's still a highly prospective exploration target for us as a company. And at some point in the future, when we're better positioned and the environment is more supportive, we'll resume exploration activities at our Silver Strike project.
Makes sense. So reallocating a little bit.
Correct.
Okay, so talk about your team and how they may be different and how they may have some more skin in the game than some other companies.
Yeah, so I mean, that's certainly an important part of our internal culture at New Pacific, and certainly led. The most sterling example of that is our now former CEO, but our founders, Rui Feng, Dr. Rui Feng, a renowned geologist, a highly successful mining entrepreneur. He was involved in the initial financing rounds of New Pacific, and he's now got roughly 7-8% interest in the company. So a huge investment from Rui. And then myself, even when I joined the company, I put $250,000 of my own money in, and I'm certainly a younger guy, as you can see. I've got a mortgage and a 2-year-old kid, so it's a personally meaningful amount for me. But I felt that it was important, being on the buy side for 11 years leading up to this, and being a portfolio manager, that was often a sticking point. We like to see that management had skin in the game, and so I felt it was important to do that upon joining the company as well, because I do see tremendous value here in New Pacific, joining a company that can successfully make that transition from being an exploration company into a development company. That's a proven path for value creation in our industry. So it also makes having skin in the game certainly a lot more palatable when you've got the quality company that we have.
Absolutely, that's important. That's a lot invested. So that kind of gets into the shareholder mix. You've got some people on the team that are own some stock. What is the shareholder mix in terms of corporate, retail, investor, institutional?
Yeah, so we've got a very unique register. Two very strong corporates are our two largest shareholders. So Silver Corp, they own 28% of us. They've been there since day one, very strong supporters of our company. And then next, behind Silver Corp, Pan American Silver, one of the world's largest silver companies, also with operations in Bolivia. So they know the country very well. They own roughly 9% of our company. And so having those two cornerstone corporate shareholders has been a really important strategic advantage for us as we have continually navigated the world of capital markets. As it's no secret, we're a pre-revenue exploration and development company. So it's a very important differentiator for us at New Pacific, having those two cornerstone corporate shareholders.
Great, excellent. So you've talked about some strengths. Any other strengths of the company you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, just having a focus in Bolivia, I think is really important. Like, we came to the country in 2017. We took a risk coming to Bolivia and made this amazing discovery at the Silver Sand Project. And in that process, because very few exploration companies were active in Bolivia, we were able to assemble a best-in-country team of exploration, project generation geologists, which then led to us acquiring both our Carangas and Silver Strike projects, which have borne significant fruit for us as a company recently. And so that project generation team is still very much active within our team down in Bolivia. And so we think that's an important point to highlight. Bolivia is geologically, it's so prolific. The largest silver deposit, silver mine in the world's history, is just 35 kilometers away from our Silver Sand discovery, the mighty Cerro Rico deposit. And there's been other major modern mines that have been discovered and developed in the last 20 years in Bolivia. But we certainly think that there's a lot more to give. And so we're very much still investing in project generation, which I think is a point that shouldn't be lost on folks when thinking about New Pacific.
Interesting. So in terms of Bolivia and other countries, how would you compare the political situation and maybe the strife and the difficulty getting permitting?
Yeah, I mean, Bolivia is a mining country. Go back to that Cerro Rico de Potosí discovery that was made in 1545, and it was that town became like the next Paris. I mean, it was a huge metropolitan center. The scale of that discovery was truly world class, and that mining activity, that mining DNA continues today. That mine's been operating since 1545. So mining is very much in the DNA of Bolivian culture. There are many mining operations still that continue to this day. So mining is not a foreign concept in Bolivia. So I think that's a really important point to highlight. Now, that being said, in the spirit of full transparency, there hasn't been a major new mine that's been discovered and permitted since three great mines were permitted. The San Cristobal operation, which was run by Sumitomo, the San Vicente operation, that was Pan American Silver, and the Manquiri operation, San Bartolome, that was core mining. Those were all permitted in the mid-2000s. And so when you talk about challenges, that's really just bringing that infrastructure and that proven institutional know-how. So we've seen that mines can be permitted in Bolivia, but it's just been a little bit of time since it's happened. So we're going through the process of re-educating folks and socializing, and there is more effort that goes into it. But ultimately, it has been done before in Bolivia many times over. So it just takes a little bit longer. But given the geologic prospectivity of the country and the fact that it truly is a mining country, we think that we've got some really important tailwinds that are going to help contribute to our future success.
Makes sense. Well, with that being said, is it a slight advantage that it may take longer, so there's not as much competition can come in?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, that's certainly, if you look at somewhere like Ontario or Quebec or Nevada or Western Australia, I mean, you're competing with like literally hundreds of other companies that are clawing and scratching over, trying to compete for land claims. That's certainly not our experience in Bolivia. That's part of the reason why you go to jurisdictions that are a little less traditional, is because you can come in and make the discoveries like we have at Silver Sand and Carangas and Silver Strike in just 5 short years. These are greenfields discoveries. We're not recycling old projects, as our industry tends to have a nasty habit of. These are genuine new projects, and that's why I think, from an exploration standpoint, certainly that is a competitive advantage of ours, and it underscores why we continue to invest in project generation capabilities throughout the country, because we still feel like it's open season for companies like us that are fully committed to Bolivia.
Interesting. Okay, let's get into, you got some incredible strengths. Let's talk about potential weaknesses of the company and how you're addressing them.
Yeah, so as far as challenges, I mean, we're no different than any other mining company. We've made the successful discovery, and so we now need to carefully advance both of our projects, Silver Sand and Carangas, through the PEA, the PFS stage, the feasibility stage, as well as the permitting stage. And so, proposing to build a major mining operation, it's there are lots of impacted stakeholders, both local communities and political stakeholders that we have to engage with as part of the process. So that does take time, and time costs money, and we're not in production. We don't have a source of income, so we certainly, that's probably our largest challenge as a junior exploration and development company, is that it is a race against the clock. We don't have a source of income, and so we need to continue to meaningfully advance our projects at a measured pace, and so that just continues. It takes dedication and persistence, which we've certainly got a lot of at New Pacific.
Excellent. So let's talk about the financing there. What are your potential future funding sources, and when may you need them?
I mean, if you just look at our balance sheet, we had $6 million US in cash at the end of June, which is still certainly enough for us to continue to move our projects forward. But to get us to the finish line where our projects we have full feasibility studies and environmental permits in hand, it certainly will take a little bit more financing to get there. And so, I mean, again, that should be no surprise given the nature of our business and where we're at. And so, certainly, much like our other peers, you could expect us to go down the traditional routes to just bring in whatever we need to get the job done, because really the next big step, once we have our full feasibility studies and our environmental permits, is that, okay, well, that's the really big financing. Our Silver Sand project, we in our PEA had $310 million of upfront capital. Certainly we could debt finance a lion's share of that, but that's a decision that'll be in the future. We'll probably need a little bit more to get there. We will need more to get there. But again, going back to our strong and supportive shareholders, we think that's a true strategic advantage of us having companies like Silvercorp, Pan American Silver, on the register, being supportive shareholders.
Great. So let's talk about some of the other financials that you want to discuss, because a lot of investors are going to be researching your company. What do they want to watch out for on your balance sheet, and then what for the catalysts that could potentially move the stock?
So as far as spending goes, our spend in the first half of the year was substantially more than it will be in the second half of this year. We were drilling at our Carangas project. We had a massive, 5 rigs were turning continuously from the start of January to the end of April, and then payables, et cetera, due May and June. So the burn in the first half of the year was certainly more significant than it will be in the second half of the year, mainly because we're not drilling at that frantic pace with 5 drill rigs. But going into the second half of the year, so key catalysts for us, I'd say, at our Silver Sand, our flagship silver sand project, we've got the PEA that was done in January. So we're looking to release our pre-feasibility study in the first quarter of next year. So we're progressing at a measured pace towards that, as well, working towards obtaining our environmental permit at our silver sand project as well. We have our 100% owned concessions at our silver sand project, but surrounding them, there's additional tenements that are owned by the Bolivian state-owned entity Ball, and we've signed an agreement with them which allows us to mine and process that material subject to an additional 6% royalty, but we need to have that agreement ratified in a parliamentary session in Bolivia. So that's really more of a political relationship exercise. So really desktop style work for us in the near term here at our silver sand project, which I'll be the first to admit from a market excitement standpoint isn't exactly the sexiest place to be, but hugely important. Again, we're talking about laying a strong foundation for a multi-decade mine that will be one of the best silver mines that's been built in a long time anywhere in the world, when it gets into production. But our Carangas project certainly been a more catalyst-rich year with the drilling that we've done so far, and then just last week we released our inaugural resource estimate at Carangas, a massive system, 560 million silver equivalent ounces and indicated, another 110 million ounces of inferred. So going forward at our Carangas project, we're going to commit to completing our PEA study to be released in the first quarter of next year, which will be an important catalyst for our company. We've shown how much metal is there. We now want to show what that means from an economic planning perspective, which is what the PEA exercise will accomplish. So that'll be really important for us. That'll be next year. But as far as big catalysts go for our Carangas project, so we've made our discovery in a much broader land holding at Carangas, and we've recently completed an IP survey of the entire district. Our discovery was blind. It's beneath 35-40 meters of unmineralized cover. And we completed this geophysical survey that flagged 5 different anomalies in the district. And so we're gonna, in the second half of this year, it won't take a lot of drilling, so the cash commitment, the cash burn isn't a significant number, but even if we drill a couple thousand meters, we feel like we can flush out the potential and prove a exploration concept that what we found at Carangas so far, while significant, is only part of a much larger district. So you can look for us to drill those anomalies hopefully by the end of this year at Carangas, which we think will be a really important catalyst for us at New Pacific.
Excellent. So you've thrown out a lot of numbers in your resources. How would you compare yourself to peers about at the same stage?
At the same stage, that's a tough comparison because they aren't. It's not just the numbers. It's also like what we're really proud of with our Carangas resources. It's big, but also, as we disclosed in our press release, the entire resource sits within a pit shell with an overall strip ratio of 1.8 to 1, which is comparatively low. And also, what's unique at Carangas is that it's zoned. There's that near surface, there's an extensive silver horizon. As you go further at depth, there's a zinc and lead horizon and a gold zone at depth. And in that near surface silver horizon, you can also potentially take out a starter pit at an even lower strip ratio than we've got overall in the greater Carangas pit. And as well, there's high grade pockets in that upper silver zone. So it's really hard to compare all those unique attributes that make Carangas such an exciting discovery. The size, the strip ratio, the zonation, the potential for starter pits. As well, we've had some very favorable initial metallurgical data come in for recovering both the silver and the gold. So it is hard to draw a comparison to existing projects out there, but certainly projects that are in production, we like to think of it much more as these big bulk, highly profitable, like the Penasquitos of this world, even in Bolivia, the San Cristobals of this world, large bulk tonnage, lower grade, but build a big enough facility, get the economies of scale. Those are highly profitable operations that we are certainly aspiring towards with our Corangus discovery.
Right. No, I think it's important investors look at the big picture, not just, ratios and typical drill numbers. So, excellent. Well, I've got about a minute left. Anything else you want to highlight about the company?
No, I mean, your questions we've run the whole course of New Pacific. Same, we've got 3 projects, very humble beginnings with just 1, and through our active project generation team, we've now got 3, and we're looking for more. And we've got 2 very significant discoveries in an industry that is just not making them at the same pace that they used to in the 90s and the 2000s decades. So we're incredibly blessed and well endowed geologically, and so we're now making that transition, bolting on the development capability that I've joined the company as part of a much larger effort. Our team is growing. It's not just me in the country. We're adding capable bodies as we take that next step. And I think that's a really exciting, it's a very exciting time for New Pacific and our much longer evolution as a company. I think it's one thing to make a discovery, but it's 2 to really translate that into a real mine that produces jobs, taxes, cash flow, and royalties for everyone. So that's the next step that we're embarking on here. And so it's a really exciting time for us at New Pacific.
Excellent. There's actually one more question.
Sure.
When I see the younger bloods come in, they usually have more energy and see where things are just too traditional and need change. What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean that's the trade-off, right? Is youthful energy. I'll say I bring to the table. I'm very focused and dedicated on making this a success, but I don't have the same experience. I don't have as many gray hairs as some of the other folks that you might see. But I think the sweet spot there is matching folks like myself with guys with gray hairs, and we certainly got some gray hairs on our board, and so I think we've got a really nice symbiotic relationship in our company, not just in the board, but even in upper levels of management as well. We've got some really good seasoned industry professionals, so I think we bring the best of both worlds to the table, and so I think it's been a deliberate effort.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Andrew. I look forward to seeing where the company goes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your questions.
You're welcome.